everyone, Kelly here, and today I wanted to talk to you about my most recent reads. And I wanted to kind of finish off on my February reads before we get into March, because I know I'm going to be reading a lot of books in March because of middle grade books just go fast. And so I figured I should just wrap up everything that I read in the second half of February. So I have two DNFs that I did in the last week of February. I've just decided that if I'm not enjoying a book, there's no reason to push myself through it. So the first one is The Death and Life of Charlie St. Cloud by Ben Sherwood. And I had read this is a reread that I was reading as part of the BookTube Rereadathon 2020, which is a year-long readathon where you reread books from the past. And the February prompt was to reread a book that you read more than 10 years ago. I first read this book in about 2006, and I remember really enjoying it, but my tastes have changed quite a bit. This book, so I made it about, I don't know, what is that, halfway, maybe a little more than 50% of the way through, and I just decided I wasn't enjoying it. I put it down for about 2 weeks, and I had no desire to pick it up again, and I know how it ends, obviously, since I've read it before, and I've seen the movie in that time period, so why make myself read it? And this, in case you are interested, this is a book about a young man named Charlie St. Cloud that he and his young brother get in a fatal car crash. Both are dead upon arrival, but the EMT is able to revive Charlie. And so that's why it's The Death and Life, because he was dead, but then was brought back by the paramedic. And because he was dead for a little bit, he is able to see dead people, and he's able to talk to his dead brother. So he has decided to work at a cemetery so that he can talk to his brother each day and continue having that relationship with his brother. And then one day a woman comes and they develop a relationship, and he kind of thinks maybe there's more to life than just talking to the dead. And I remember really enjoying this book. Sorry, my cat is pushing against the tripod, so sorry if it shakes. I don't know. I remember really enjoying this book, but back then I read a lot of Nicholas Sparks and those kind of books that are kind of slightly tragic and I don't know, just those kind of books. You know what I'm talking about. And this is very much like a Nicholas Sparks book. So if you like Nicholas Sparks, you should try reading this. But it's just not my style anymore. I don't really like that type of book. I didn't think the writing was very good. Stop. The cat is determined to chew on the tripod. I didn't really like the writing, and there was actually in the first half of the book, there was twice that there were as a joke that involved slavery. And the first time I was like, okay, well maybe that's just that character, we'll move on. But then it happened again, and I was like, that's just really inappropriate. And so I was like, I'm done. Like I said, I know how it ends. I don't need to push myself to read it again. So that was one DNF. And then, let me get this cat. If you're going to be involved with the tripod, you're going to come and sit with me. Yes, aren't you? Aren't you? This is also the cat that woke me up at 5 o'clock this morning. So I'm not exactly on the best of terms with him right now. And then my other DNF is I Owe You One by Sophie Kinsella. This was, if you watched my March TBR, this is one of the books that was picked on my scratch off. I had gotten, this is an art copy that I had found in a little free library. I've read one of Sophie Kinsella's books in the past. And so when I saw it in the little free library, I picked it up. And yeah, I didn't like this one. I'm not going to give up on Sophie Kinsella in general. But this one, the main character was driving me insane. Obviously, I did not make it very far, so I don't really know exactly what this is about. I made it about 50 pages in. And so far, all that happened is that we are following this woman. What is her name? Fixie? I think her name's Fixie. And she was just being trampled on by her family. Her brother just was treating her really badly. Some of the other people in her life were treating her really badly, and she just kept saying, oh, my motto is family comes first. I learned from my father. Her father had died, and his motto was always family comes first. So she just let her brother walk all over her and be mean to her. And I'm like, that's not what family first means. It's just because you think that you need to go along with everything your family says and does because you're honoring your father's memory, that doesn't mean you shouldn't tell your brother to stop being mean to you. Like, that's not how it works. And so it was really driving me nuts. So I did look up like some reviews about the book just to see how other people felt. And this does, for Sophie Kinsella, get a pretty low rating. And I read some of the reviews and they said that it is a really annoying main character and it takes her a long time to get through her character growth. And I'm like, I just can't handle spending like 300 of the 400 pages watching her get walked over by her family. And it sounds like it's going to be like one of those romances where she's in love with a guy from her past who's always treated her badly and she needs to get over that. And I'm not really into that kind of a romance either, because it just sounds like more of her being annoying and being walked over and not like standing up for herself. So I DNF'd this at 50 pages. I just didn't want to deal with it. It just didn't sound entertaining to me. I didn't even enjoy the first 50 pages at all. So now are the books that I actually finished. I'm going to start with the book I like the least and go to the best so I can get all that negativity out of the way. So really I only have 1 2-star reads and the rest are 4 and 5s. So only one more negative book, and that is Watch Me Disappear by Janelle Brown. And if you saw my vlog I did most recently, you heard me talk about this book, and I just really didn't like it. I gave it 2 stars. This is a thriller that is about the disappearance of a woman named Billy. She's a mom, and she goes missing one day when she is hiking alone out in the wilderness, never returns. She's presumed dead. It's a year after that, so they're kind of like, the family is still working on getting her death certificate, because I guess that process takes a long time if there is no body found. And so a year later, they're about to get the death certificate handed on so that they can get her insurance, life insurance money. And we are following her husband and her teenage daughter. And the daughter is starting to have these visions of her mother saying, "Come find me." And so she thinks that her mother's actually alive and wants to like postpone the like whole death certificate thing and go searching for her mother. And so that is the process that is happening during the book. We're following like the daughter who is having these visions. We as a reader don't know if it's like a paranormal thing or what's going on. And then we're also following the husband who is like really wanting to push forward the death certificate thing because they're running out of money and they're just having a hard time in life. And he also just wants that like conclusion to move on in his life. And I just found it, 1, really boring. 2, I didn't like the whole possible paranormal, because like, I'm not gonna tell you whether it turned out to be paranormal or not, her visions, but just even like the possibility of that paranormal thing, it just wasn't well done. I didn't think, like, it just, I don't know, it didn't seem like it fit in with the plot. And I almost DNF'd this because I just really didn't like the writing either. It was written in third person present tense. And that was kind of annoying me. Just present tense, sometimes it's hard to read for me. It just felt awkward and stifled. And so I was gonna DNF it, but I have a really hard time DNFing thrillers because the whole point is the reveal. So I waited for the reveal, and then like, if you watch my vlog, you heard me complain about this, but basically the climax happens, and I was listening to this because I thought that would help me push through, is to listen to the audiobook. The climax happens, I thought, oh, we must be ending the book. And then I looked down at my audiobook and it had over an hour and a half left of the book. And we'd had the climax, had the big reveal. And I'm like, what is there still to do? Like, I feel like we've solved this thing. Let's wrap it up, because usually after a climax in a book you might only have like 20 maybe 30 minutes of like conclusion to wrap it up. But no, it just kept going. Nothing after the climax was interesting at all. It was an hour and a half of just like, where are they now kind of things. And I'm like, you don't need that in a thriller. You kind of want with a thriller to have a little bit of mystery or like not knowing what happens next. And it was like we had to find out everything. Every person needed to have a conclusion to their story. And then there was an epilogue that in itself was 40 minutes long, which an epilogue shouldn't be that long. And it was very much an info dump. It could have just been 2 pages and been kind of a great epilogue if it had been like the climax, a very short conclusion, and then like a 2-page epilogue. I might have given this 3 stars, but no, it was 2. I don't recommend. Now let's move on to books that I actually enjoyed. So the first one was an audiobook I listened to during Thriller-a-thon, and that was My Lovely Wife by Samantha Downing. I gave this 4 stars. This probably wasn't a high 4 stars. Like if I was still giving out half stars, it probably would have been a 3.5, because it was entertaining, but there wasn't like a lot of substance to it. It's a thriller, for at least me. I didn't find it to have a lot of substance. It's very predictable. So it just didn't really like necessarily like become a new favorite or anything like that, but it was entertaining to listen to for a few days. And this is about a married couple who have decided to kill people, and that's kind of how to like keep their relationship fresh. And like, you know, from the beginning pretty much that they kill people, and then you learn like why it started as it goes, and like how many people they've killed and like why and all that stuff. But yeah, that's basically the premise. And all of the characters are bad people, you know, immoral characters, and there's not like a saving grace or anything like that type of thing. But if you enjoy kind of twisted stories and following twisted people, then this is entertaining. It just isn't like everything that happens, any twists and reveals to me were all very predictable, which is fine. It was still just like a fluff, fun read, I guess. I mean, kind of like watching a slasher film where you kind of know what's happening the whole time, but you're just like entertained by it. That's kind of how I would explain this book. And then next I read Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck. And this is really short, so it's hard. I don't want to tell you too much. This is a classic about two men who are like laborers, and they're, you know, traveling from different places, like different farms, to find labor and work, and they're good friends. And one of them is a man with a mental disability, and so the other man, what is his name? Lenny's the one with the mental disability, and I can't think of what the other, George is the man that kind of is helping him and guiding him, helping him get a job and all that stuff. And it's just about them starting a job at a new place and all of the things that happen at this new job, and kind of what happens in their life in this moment. It is very much like just happening over a couple days, and what happens in that moment, the people they meet, and there's a lot of like just tragic stuff going on here. Everybody is miserable, and yeah, so if you're somebody that needs hope in your books and like more happy things, this is not the book for you. But I really enjoyed reading it. It kind of reads like a play, and that's what I really liked about it. I could like picture all the scenes in my mind. And then actually I was buddy reading this with a few people, and one of the guys I was reading with said, oh, I just Googled it, and it turns out that Steinbeck purposely wrote it with like a mix between novel and play kind of style that I guess was popular at the time when he wrote it. And so that's why it felt like a play, but I really enjoy reading plays, so it made me enjoy this book. I just liked how at the beginning of each like section, he would describe the area kind of like stage notes. Like he would describe the scenery, he would describe the person, and then all of the action is like through dialogue. So it is very much like reading a play where you set up the scene with stage notes and then have dialogue. So I really liked it. I would recommend it. Not everybody likes Steinbeck. I happen to really enjoy the Steinbeck that I have read, so I really liked this one. And then next, I needed a kind of like fluffy, happy read because I was in the middle of reading a bunch of like really like depressing books. I mean, I just finished Of Mice and Men, which is pretty depressing, and I was in the middle of reading The Stand by Stephen King, which I still haven't finished because it's a huge book, but it's not a happy book. And so there was just a lot of like depressing stuff I was reading, and I just really needed an audiobook that would be like happy and fun. So I picked up The Accidental Beauty Queen by Teri Wilson, and I did pick this up as an audiobook even though I own the book. I got the audiobook from my library so I could listen to it while doing some chores and things like that. And I ended up reading this all in one day. It's not a long book. I mean, I think even the physical form is only 280 pages, and the narrator was a really slow talker, so I ended up speeding it up to like 1.75 speed, and I think the total book is only like 6 to 7 hours long. So yeah, it went by really fast and finished it in one day. But this was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it a lot. I gave it 4 stars. And this book is about these twin women. They're 29 years old, and one of the twins is a beauty queen. She, like, that's her main thing, is to enter these pageants and things like that. And then she's also like a social media model, like an Instagram model and stuff like that. But she really wants to win this pageant that their mother had won when she was younger, and this is the last year because you can't do the pageant once you're 30. And so her other sister, who is a librarian, who is a librarian, her name is Charlotte, comes to support her and watch her pageant and all that. And because it's in Florida, it's kind of like a little vacation for her sister as well. So Charlotte goes to support Jenny at this pageant, and the day before the pageant starts, Jenny gets an allergic reaction and her face like completely blows up, and the doctor said it'll take several days for the swelling to go down. And so Jenny asks her twin sister to start the pageant for her and because there's like the beginning part where they get down to like 20 people and then the finalists happen. And so she wants her twin to pretend to be her for just this preliminary part, get her to the finals, and by then she'll be better and able to participate. But she doesn't want to give up her dream of entering this pageant because their mom, that was really important for their mother. And so of course Charlotte says she will, but they look a lot different. Charlotte doesn't wear makeup. She's just kind of a chilled out librarian. And so she has to go through the whole makeover process. And this is basically like Miss Congeniality, except for they're not cops. But it was like just fun. I mean, it was exactly what you would expect, just her hanging out with the other beauty pageant people, a lot of stuff between her and her sister, their relationship. There is a romance in this, and the romance was cute. Everything was just cute and fluffy. It's not anything breaking the mold. Like, it is basically Miss Congeniality, pretty much, of like kind of learning that, there's more to beauty queens than you think and all that stuff. It's just fun. I enjoyed it. Like I said, it's very fast. Read it in a day. But if you're just looking for like a quick, fun read, I would recommend it. I liked it. And the last book I want to talk about is The Memoirs of Sherlock Holmes by Arthur Conan Doyle. And this is the second short story collection in the series. And I had read the first short story collection called The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes just like a month or two ago. And it took me forever to read that one because I just don't really like short stories. I was just not getting into the first stories in the series, in that collection. And I was like, oh gosh, am I just not gonna really like Holmes in short story form? And so I went into this one kind of apprehensive and thinking, oh, I'm not gonna like this one either. And then I ended up loving it. I ended up giving it 5 stars, which was a big surprise to me because I usually just don't like short stories. And I don't know if it's because I just read that other short story collection not too long ago, and so I was already kind of in the short Holmes mood, or if these stories were just a lot better. But I found every single one of these interesting except for maybe 2. There's 11 stories in this collection, I think. Yeah, 11. And all but 2 of them were excellent. I really enjoyed them. I found them much more exciting and interesting than the first story collection. I felt like the first story collection, Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, was more about Holmes and his humanity and his interaction with other people and stuff like that, where this one, it felt really focused on high adventure stakes. There were several times it seemed like his life was in danger or somebody's life was really in danger, other than just investigating somebody that's already been murdered, or something that has already happened. It felt like it was a lot more stakes in these stories, and I really enjoyed that. I found them a lot of fun to read. So it makes me really excited to continue the series. I'm supposed to be reading The Hound of Baskerville next, which I'll probably pick up pretty soon because I had a really great time with this one. So if you are somebody that maybe struggled through the first short story collection, keep going, because I do think this one was really good. And you wouldn't have to read these in order necessarily, so if you just wanted to pick up this one first, because it's not like these are even in order, because sometimes one story will reference another story and not necessarily in the order they are placed. I'm not sure why they were originally placed in this order anyway, so they don't really follow a necessarily chronological order. So I'd highly recommend it. So those are all the books that I kind of read in February. Now that it is March, I'm excited to be reading a bunch of middle grade books and a bunch of series. So if you have read any of these and you want to talk about them, I'd love to hear from you down below. Thanks, bye.